A couple of days later, maybe 2 or 3 actually, I get an email back from Focusrite after my support ticket was lodged and marked as urgent. And they said, thanks for contacting us. This is a known issue with a handful of units. We've now released a firmware patch that you can download and install yesterday. You can download and install the latest version of Focusrite Control 3.2 for Windows that will contain the firmware patch that will fix this problem. That's what they said. And I was like, huh? So, okay. I went ahead and downloaded that control software, upgraded version, whatever you call it. I downloaded Focusrite Control 3.2, patched the firmware, tested it, the dim and mute button. Yes, he was right. The guy from Focusrite was right. It fixed the problem. No more dim and mute button problem. Press the dim button, it dims. It doesn't light up the mute button and it doesn't mute the output. You press the mute button, it will mute the output as intended, as it should be. Dim means dim and mute means mute. Okay. Fast forward a couple of days, man, I've been busy with other stuff, fixing other problems, whatever. I gotta think about this response that the guy gave me. And this is what makes me mad. Firstly, you can say that off of his response, that line, which is the key, is the main part of the response. This is a known issue with a handful of units. The second main part is, yesterday we released a firmware patch that solves this problem. Firstly, you can say that, on the one hand, I was just unlucky. If it's a known issue with a handful of units, maybe the retailer did in fact get a bad batch, and all those batches, all those Focusrite Claret Plus 8 Pres had this problem. And those were the few units that had this problem. Okay. And then the timing of it, taking things at face value, the timing of this. Somehow, I just installed Focusrite Control at the wrong time. If I had waited for the day after this firmware patch was released before trying to set up my Focusrite Claret for the very first time, I'd never have encountered that issue, never had this massive headache of trying to work out what is going on, gaslighting myself, going back and forth with the retailer, traveling back and forth between the retailer, wasting all of this time. Or, indeed, if I had gotten the replacement and then in between the time I tried to set up the replacement and, having walked out of the retailer with it, that they released this firmware patch, I probably could have saved a little bit of time and a lot of headache. But on face value, it's bad luck. I got 2 units that just happened to have this problem. The timing of me trying to fix this or get it to work was just on the wrong side of their firmware patch temporally. Or if you look a little deeper, it's like, here's the thing, and this is what I've been thinking the last few days is, did they really know about this before I brought it to their attention. If they knew about it before I brought it to their attention, why was the timing such that only after I brought it to their attention, 2 days after I lodged a ticket about this, did they have a firmware patch for it? Do they not test the firmware, each firmware release before, forcing all Focusrite Claret users to download a wonky firmware patch? And if they knew about it before, why didn't they why didn't they publicize it? Why didn't they tell Focusrite Claret Plus users that there's a problem with this firmware patch before forcing them to download it and use it? Like, as I said before, when I opened up Focusrite Control, I was forced to download and install that firmware 3.19 patch that had the wonky, the dim and mute button problem. I couldn't get around not updating the firmware to a buggy version. And if you knew about it, why didn't you make it like a quicker fix available to users that are experiencing this problem? Maybe you could have given them the option to roll back the firmware to like a previous version that didn't have this problem, and then users can patiently wait until the buggy version is patched over. If you knew about it, why didn't you tell people? You just wasted a whole bunch of my time. You just wasted a whole bunch of the retailer's time. The retailer might be getting in trouble from the supplier for sending back a unit that, on face value is faulty. But looking deeper, it's not actually faulty because, they can fix it. The manufacturer can fix it with a firmware patch. They probably had to pay a fine or something. Look, if you knew about it, why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you tell the users? Why didn't you give us a fix earlier that was easier? Why did you force us to install a buggy version of the firmware? But if you didn't know about it and you're just lying, why did you have to lie? Like, is your bottom line that important that if scenario one, you knew about it, you could have told people about it? Is your bottom line that important? So much more important than your customers, that your existing customers, that you don't want to make this public with, in case would-be buyers would be turned away? Because as far as I'm concerned, I'm an existing customer. I won't be a future customer anymore because of this. You've lost my trust 100%. I fully, totally expected more, expected some kind of a level of decency. But instead, you guys, Focusrite, were too scared that they might affect their bottom line from would-be potential customers, that they didn't bother telling everyone that could be affected by this issue, that this was an issue, and giving them an easy solution. Instead, they wasted a whole bunch of my time, probably a whole bunch of other users' time. Man, I don't know if I'm the only person ever that went to the retailer, got a replacement, came back with a unit that I thought was faulty again, and then this cost me days, even up to 2 or 3 weeks of not being able to work because of them. If they had just simply told us all that, hey, this firmware version is buggy, use a different one or roll back to the previous one, I wouldn't have wasted all this time. The retailer's time wouldn't have been wasted. The retailer may not need to have paid a fine to their supplier. But instead, Focusrite were too greedy, too selfish, and they don't care about existing customers. They just care about getting new customers. So stuff them. I'm never buying another Focusrite product ever again. Thanks very much. Anyway, rant over. Thanks so much for watching. Please like, comment, share, subscribe. Let me know your thoughts on this issue. Let me know if you agree. Let me know if you disagree. I don't mind. Yeah. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you again in the next video. Cheers.